Hey folks, join us as we explore Sydney, Nova Scotia. We cruise into port on the Majestic Princess and immediately dive into Cape Breton adventures. From the Cabot Trail to the Alexander and Mabel Museum, we see local sights and even the Merchant Mariner Memorial, all before enjoying dinner on board. Let's go! We are cruising slowly down the South Arm, heading towards Sydney Port, where we're going to stop off for the day.
Good morning, and behind me you can see Sydney, and that's where we're going today. We're going on a cruise-based excursion to the Alexander and Mabel Museum and his summer home of Baddeck. Now, I don't think we're actually going to see the summer home. I think we just view the area around. It's apparently something like 25 acres and it's supposed to be quite attractive. Now, Joanne isn't going with us. It's me and my mate, and we're basically going to have some time out away from the ladies and let them enjoy themselves on the ship. So on the way into port, we passed the Queen Mary 2 and she had her tenders out. I'm not sure if there was an exercise going on or if she'd actually had to tender passengers in, either because she wouldn't fit or because the berths were taken. But we don't have a tender. We're actually going to dock and then get off. Now, the disembarkation time for us is 9 o'clock and we're meeting down in the Symphony restaurant in order to take up our cruise excursion. And behind me we've also got the Vision of the Seas, and I'm pretty sure she was moored near us the other day, according to Cruise Mapper.
We always enjoy cruising into port, whether it's the scenery, passing other ships, the anticipation of exploring a new destination, or simply watching the port operations unfold. Each element adds to the experience, a lull before the disembarkation storm. We had a quick breakfast upstairs in the buffet before heading down to the Symphony restaurant to join our excursion. Yesterday the girls had mixed up the dates and thought our excursion was scheduled a day earlier, so they weren't ready then. Fortunately, there was a slight delay in the disembarkation announcement and it gave them just enough time to join us. Today we disembark promptly and make our way to the coaches waiting outside the cruise terminal.
I just want to warn you, as we're getting started, when you see me around, if you call this a skirt in Cape Breton, you'll get killed. And the accent that we have here in Cape Breton is actually influenced by both. In the Sydney area here, we have a heavier influence of Irish, Gaelic in our speech. You are on Cape Breton Island. This is the island part of Nova Scotia. Now, the mainland of Nova Scotia, if we include that, there's 65% Celtic.
Our journey begins at the cruise terminal in Sydney, Nova Scotia. This city was originally founded by the British and served as Cape Breton Island's colonial capital until 1820. The colony merged with Nova Scotia and the capital moved to Halifax, which is where we were yesterday. This city is the cultural and commercial heart of Cape Breton Island. Historically, it's been shaped by coal, steel and the sea, and the harbour once took a central role connecting this region to the wider world through trade and immigration. These days, following a downturn in those industries, tourism is one of the new industries giving Sydney a lease of life. Leaving the city behind, we follow the coast northward, where the land gradually becomes more rugged and the communities are more closely tied to the ocean. The autumnal colours are out in force for the same reason that we've seen in other ports of call, an early autumn caused by a lack of rain. Our guide is sharing some Gaelic words and phrases as we go along to get us into the local language and culture. He wears a kilt to emphasise the island's roots. Our journey takes us across the Seal Island Bridge, which is the main connection to Cape Breton Island from Sydney. This bridge, opened in 1961, is around 450 feet long and is a through-arch design, crossing the Brador Lake. It is built mainly of steel and reinforced concrete and replaced 2 ferry services. We then arrive at Cape Breton Island, and ahead of us is the Cabot Trail, which is named after the explorer John Cabot. The trail is internationally recognised as one of the world's most scenic coastal drives. Our driver stops to let us take in the view over the lake. While out of the bus, we had 10 minutes to take in the view, grab those videos and photographs, and then clamber back in before we were off again. We are overlooking St Anne's Harbour, part of St Anne's Bay on the island's southwestern shore. This sheltered scenic harbour is surrounded by hills and separated from the ocean by a shingle bar, making it ideal for small boats and cruisers. The area supports mussel farming, contributing to the local economy, while the nearby community of St Anne's is known for its Gaelic heritage and cultural associations. We go south towards Baddeck, where Alexander Graham Bell once had his summer home, and there is now a museum which is the focus of our visit, and it's also known as the unofficial gateway to the Cabot Trail. This is one of the scenic and memorable stretches of this famous coastal drive, as it winds along parts of the Brador Lake, providing beautiful water views. There are plenty of pull-off lookouts and peaceful roadside scenery. Along the way we pass small communities, forested valleys and rolling terrain. Approaching Baddeck, our drive becomes calmer, with more water views as we drive along the lake. Baddeck itself is a charming lakeside village known for its welcoming atmosphere, waterfront boardwalk and the connection to Alexander Graham Bell. The museum is a short distance out of the town, and we will have a brief visit to the town later. This portion of the Cabot Trail offers a gentle conclusion to one of Canada's most iconic road trips. When I think of Alexander Graham Bell, I remember black and white photos of a heavily bearded, middle-aged man striking a very formal pose. I know him only as the inventor of the telephone, and I know nothing about his other diverse pursuits that the money that he made from that invention afforded him. It's incredible that he invented the telephone at the age of 29 and then successfully commercialised it, founding Bell Telephones, which would later become AT&T, one of the world's most dominant monopolies. The museum and its grounds are a National Historic Site and totally separate from Ben V, Bell's estate, where his descendants still reside. This museum celebrates his varied interests, his life, innovations and his deep ties to Baddeck. His work covered a very broad spectrum of the scientific landscape: sound, hydrofoils, aeronautics, as well as research into inherited traits and genetics. Bell's father, grandfather and brother were all involved in the study of elocution and speech. His father published extensively on pronunciation and elocution. His mother lost her hearing when he was 12, which profoundly shaped his life's work. His investigations into hearing and speech led him to experiment with hearing devices, ultimately resulting in his invention and patent for the telephone. As you might expect, the collection featured a wide array of telephones, illustrating the evolution of design and technology across the different eras. Alongside these, there are also examples of court documents from some of the numerous lawsuits and legal battles that Bell successfully navigated to defend his telephone patent. This highlights not only his inventive genius, but also the legal challenges he overcame to secure his place in history.
This is a water-cooled engine which was purchased by the Canadian Aerodrome Company for use on the Baddecks.
Suspended from the ceiling in a large exhibit hall is a replica of the Silver Dart. This was an early experimental aircraft developed under Bell's guidance as part of his Aerial Experiments Association. The Silver Dart made history as the first powered heavier-than-air aircraft to complete a controlled flight in Canada and the British Empire, taking off from the frozen surface of Baddeck Bay. Its name comes from the silver-coloured, rubber-impregnated cloth that covered its wings. Given that the Wright brothers and Alexander Graham Bell were contemporaries, I asked ChatGPT what the timeline was for the innovations that they both made. Downstairs, one of the main exhibits features a replica of Bell's most famous hydrofoil, the HD4. Now, a hydrofoil is a boat equipped with a wing-like foils beneath its hull. As the boat gains speed, the foils lift it out of the water, reducing drag and allowing it to travel faster. Fascinated by water transportation, Bell collaborated with Frederick K.C. Baldwin to explore innovative hydrofoil designs. He applied aerodynamic principles to water, using carefully shaped wings to lift his boats at high speeds. The HD4 set a world speed record for watercraft in 1919, 70.86 miles per hour, a considerable feat at that time. Despite initial interest by the US and British navies, it was unable to attract buyers, so the HD4 project was effectively abandoned. These are the last remains of the original HD4, recovered decades after being beached and left on the shore. Its stripped down hull had been left to languish outdoors, exposed to wither and decay, after the project was effectively abandoned. Modern hydrofoils for ferries and racing boats are built on the same principles that Bell explored. On the day that we came, the Celtic Colours was taking place, a short musical performance and talk lasting about an hour. We heard the warm-up and it was very good. Here are various prototypes for propellers that Bell experimented with. He realised that propellers were essentially rotating wings, so using his experience with wing shapes for kites and aeroplanes, he looked at different shapes of propeller blades that could improve their efficiency in converting engine power into thrust. After Alexander Graham Bell's premature son died because he couldn't breathe properly, Bell invented the vacuum jacket, designed to stimulate breathing and to try and avoid that in the future. Emma Nutt became the world's first telephone operator when she was recruited by Bell in 1878. This exhibit looks at Volta, a research lab Bell set up with funding from his telephone, which in 1880 invented the photophone. Bell's favourite invention, it was the first device to transmit sound wirelessly using light. Its principles are the foundations of modern communications technologies like fibre optics. Now, this isn't a replica of Bell's office, but it's an amalgamation of two office spaces that he used to use regularly, one from his summer home and the other his actual office. This exhibit is a mock-up of Mabel, Bell's wife's space. She used to use the typewriter on the right-hand side to write short stories. Bell didn't invent the gramophone, but his and Volta Lab's work on the graphophone was a crucial step in the evolution of recorded sound, making sound recording more practical, improving quality, and making it more commercially viable. The exhibits share some of his personal belongings and notes, and they also explore his diverse scientific interests. He was not so much an inventor, but more interested in gaining knowledge, rising to the possibility and the challenges, and less interested in the commercialization. He was an accomplished scientist at a very young age, spurred on by his curiosity and imagination. Just below where we came in, an exhibit explores his role in sound. He played a key role in the early history of Columbia Records as he helped establish the Volta Graphophone. Columbia Phonograph Company was formed to distribute the graphophones and recordings. Eventually it evolved into Columbia Records, one of the world's most influential music labels and now part of Sony. Upstairs you'll find the museum or gift shop. It had a surprisingly good selection of souvenirs and memorabilia for what was a relatively small facility. And it included things like clothing, gadgets, badges, books, kites, toys and pictures. There was something there for everybody. By the side of the gift shop there was a coffee machine where you could buy a coffee, or there was some soft drinks and snacks, and then next to it was a very small seating area if you wanted to have a sit. Once we got out of the museum, we once again took in the beautiful vista, looking over the expansive Brastor Lake. It's a really stunning centrepiece, and you can fully understand why the Bells chose this location. The shimmering waters reflect the changing skies, creating a captivating sight throughout the day. Surrounding the museum there's also a striking landscape, lush verdant hills and forested areas that provide a striking contrast to the deep blue of the lake. The changing colours of the foliage with the seasons, particularly at this time of the year, add to the visual appeal. In the distance you can see the rugged peaks of the Cape Breton Highlands, offering a further dramatic backdrop. Back on the coach we make the very short trip to Baddeck, where we have a quick stop before we return home. Both Mabel and Alexander were involved in the local community in a number of different ways that extended beyond mere residency. They actively influenced local culture, engagement, education and technology. So let's quickly explore the town and the Bell's contribution. We touched on Bell's hydrofoil experiments earlier on in this vlog, and they were done on Brastor Lake, which is here. Well, whilst he was doing those, he also invited the local youth to observe and to learn from the experiments, helping to inspire future generations. Their summer home became a centre for community events. It held frequently hosted gatherings for local families and influential figures, and engaged them in discussion about education, science and technology. This fostered a huge sense of community and created opportunities for networking. They also participated in and financially supported various local festivals, including agricultural fairs and cultural events. Mabel had a very strong interest in the arts, and she supported local artists. She organised events that showcased the local talent and crafts. The couple's dedication to documenting their scientific work and community interactions contributed significantly to the historical preservation of Baddeck. They maintained extensive records that helped shape the narrative of the area's cultural and scientific heritage. Bells supported the creation of the Baddeck School for the Deaf, an institution focused on oral education methods which encouraged students to learn speech and lip reading instead of sign language. Mabel, who was deaf herself, played a crucial role advocating effective teaching strategies. In collaboration with local architects and builders, Bell constructed an anechoic chamber for acoustic experiments at Ben Vai, attracting visitors interested in sound studies and broadening the educational horizons in the community. There isn't a lot of Baddeck. It's a small, quaint town with a population of probably just under 1,000, and it retains that small town charm. It sits around the lake with a fantastic backdrop of some of the loveliest natural beauty around. It's a popular base for exploring Cape Breton Island, and is seen as either the start or the end of the Cabot Trail. As such, it caters for the tourist with local restaurants, galleries, lake cruises and souvenir shops. It goes without saying that the Bells continue to attract visitors to this area. Commemorating the work of the Aerial Experiment Association, which resulted in the first aeroplane flight within the British Empire. We had less than half an hour in Baddeck as we were due back to the ship, presumably to allow another excursion to take place, as we weren't leaving the port for some time. We went back the same way that we had come, though in this direction different vistas came into view. Initially the road hugged the edges of the Baddeck Lake, and for a while the water seemed to travel with us, calm, silvery and wide, dotted with distant shorelines that blurred into forest. The village then slipped quietly away to be replaced by rolling hills and stretches of spruce and maple that felt almost endless. As we travelled, the landscape opened and closed in rhythm, long views across marshes and inlets, then tighter corridors of trees where the light flickered through branches, sometimes rocky, sometimes forest. Small communities appeared briefly, clusters of houses, a church, a roadside diner, before fading back into the countryside. Closer to Sydney, the scenery changes, it shifts, the land flattens, the trees thin, and hints of industry and harbour life start to appear. It was about here that the driver started to take to the back streets, quite a feat in our coach, as it took up most of the road. He successfully avoided the roadworks though, as he meandered through the narrow residential areas. Finally, the road led us into Sydney, the historic brick buildings mixed with practical modern ones. There was a lived-in feel rather than a polished tourist gloss. Next, the port came into view, our ship at her berth, the open sweep of the harbour, and the sense of arrival that comes at the end of a journey. First thing is to get back on board and meet up with Joanne, and we went up to the buffet to grab ourselves some lunch. We still had ample time, around 4 hours before we needed to actually be back on board, so having grabbed some lunch I planned on disembarking again and taking a wander around Sydney town. There were a few things that had interested me as we had driven in. On both sides of this reasonably small street were groups of tourists clambering around men, all wearing in what I guess is American colonial attire, and they were listening to stories about the historical houses or the ghostly goings on. These themed walks around the city seem very popular.
So we're walking down Charlotte Street, just had a look at St George's Church and the graveyard that they've got there. Very interesting, seems to attract a lot of the spirit tours, and they're going on about all the historical events that occurred there.
So this restored historic former church is over 140 years old. It was acquired in 2018 and transformed into a multifunctional event space, and it now hosts local music events, weddings, dances and corporate functions.
So we're currently on George's Street, and I'm just leaving behind really nice timber framed church, which was the Sacred Hearts Church.
So we've returned to Charlotte Street and we're further into the downtown Sydney area, and here you'll find modern buildings, predominantly shops and restaurants. Although when I investigated down the side roads I found a number of things that took my interest. As we further walk down the street it changes, and suddenly I found a lovely timber framed church. Now this building dates back to 1918 and it looks superb. Apparently it was an amalgamation of 4 different churches, which occurred relatively recently. Anyway, it signals a change in the street. The shops are now being left behind, and we're now walking in a residential area, and here there are some historic and interesting buildings. That said, as I got to the end of the street, and almost as a statement, the last house was quite modern, and a real contrast to the other houses that I'd seen. Across the road is Wentworth Park. This is a historic urban park. It's one of the oldest in the city, being established in 1786. That was just a year after Sydney was founded. It covers about 14 acres and it's got landscape green spaces and a 1.2 kilometre walking path that goes round it. And there you'll find ponds, gardens and recreational features. It's okay Joanne, I did check out this track before I actually got so close. Now the park is centred around Wentworth Creek, and that forms a series of interconnected ponds where you will often find ducks and other birds as well as fountains.
So I've just been at Wentworth Park, and there was an old disused railway track running across the middle of the park, and very nice
There's a lot to see and do, but a nice place to relax. On this side of the pond was a lovely rattan-style gazebo. I'm now following the path down towards the seafront, and the view over the pond and park is just as good, if not better, than from the opposite side. Soon I hit the seafront, just by the Nova Scotia Community College. It's the province's main career-focused college, offering hands-on, practical training designed to prepare students for real-world jobs through labs, workshops, co-ops and industry partnerships. I guess it's a bit like the technical colleges we had back in the day. So this is out the back of the city campus, college campus. The Sydney waterfront boardwalk stretches out in front of me and it leads me back towards the ship, past the ubiquitous iconic city letters that you seem to find in all tourist locations. When we had lunch, people were talking about the Sydney Atlantic Convoys Memorial and what a moving sculpture it was. I was quite anxious to see if I could find it. We passed signs that advertised the city's craft, arts and music. Now, if I'd seen the sign for the downtown city art walk earlier, I would have scanned that code and followed the art. I had, though, already seen some of the pieces earlier and I didn't want to go back on myself, so let's keep going forward to the ship. This made a nice walk, lovely views over the sea, interesting buildings to take in, and we also passed a small marina on our way back to the ship. It's an easy path and it made the perfect return loop for our city exploration. We found the Merchant Mariner's Memorial, a bronze monument honouring the seamen of the Merchant Marine who served and often sacrificed their lives during the Battle of the Atlantic and other World War II convoys. It powerfully underscores their sacrifice and highlights their essential role in transporting troops and supplies across dangerous seas, a vital yet often overlooked contribution to the war effort. So all that remains is to check out the port's shopping area, which is strategically arranged so that most people will be directed through it on their return to the ship. The shopping centre at the port is called Shop Fiddle, and it's advertising itself as the world's largest fiddle. Interesting. Don't think I'd have chosen that name. Inside there's a massive warehouse space where there are a number of tables and various artisans have set up shop. Here you can buy jewellery, art, souvenirs, clothing, bags, cards, plates and wooden mementos. Outside there are a number of wooden huts and these have a slightly more permanent feel to them. Here you will find more artisans selling their wares. Now the blacksmith had some nice wrought iron work, but it's quite pricey. Elsewhere you could buy picture frames made out of driftwood. There was a very reasonably priced clothing shop as well as shops selling souvenirs made from sea glass, and you could get maple syrup. The gangway to the ship is then a few yards away. Now I need to get up to the room, relax and then get ready for dinner in the Concerto main dining room.
So I've got some minestrone soup. I love soup.
So we have a seafood antipastio with some squid, prawns and scallops and a mussel in there I see.
Oh, thank you. selecting Italian doing
You can have some beans on
The
top.
sauce is lovely. This is
I'm not
part of
food.
an Italian special.
He's not in the mood.
This apparently is a Canadian
Oh,
New England
Yeah.
flavour. There's a little extra
Oh, pep to it as well.
lovely pasta dish. What dish is this?
It's a tomato.
Penne.
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 Penne arrabbiata, I would say. Slightly chilli. Probably arrabbiata.
And it's very nice. Actually quite hot.
Arrabbiata, yeah.
Quite hot.
It's arrabbiata.
About very hot. Tomatoey and hot.
I actually like
Really nice.
Oh my god, you've got double potatoes. Oh my god.
Oh, lasagna.
Enjoy your dinner.
Oh, that's
It
lovely.
all depends on.
Yeah, good.
Is it good?
Bueno.
People like
Buono.
Bueno.
Buono. Not bueno. Buono. When you eat the Popeye,
No, look.
I'll eat the Popeye. Yeah, look. I'll eat the Popeye.
And that's a seriously good lasagna. Lovely. To the theme of The Godfather. Courtesy of Michael Howwaiter. We've got a little duck.
Oh, it's spilling everywhere. It's overflowing. Souffle.
Yeah.
It's orangey.
Oh, sweet enough. Thank you.
Lovely.
And I have a lemon meringue. Having tried to get both a lemon meringue and a tiramisu and failed, so I've just got the lemon meringue.
Oh, bless you. Thank you.
Just
Thank you, darling.
Oh,
And it's a
It doesn't make it look
not
so
bad lemon meringue cheesecake. Really nice.